Hey guys, Greg here. It's time for a contest, and we're in the big vinyl room once again because my family vacated the premises, so I can take over the big vinyl room here in the house instead of that back little vinyl room. This contest is for Dan's Vinyl Channel, and the theme is changes. And I'm not going to show David Bowie's changes because I bet someone has already covered that. Why is Dan's Vinyl Channel changing? Well, first of all, Dan is a cool guy. He does his videos DJ style. He's got a big studio microphone, and he's not like a DJ spinning records, but like a DJ on a FM radio. Got a good voice and a good delivery. Why is Dan's Vinyl Channel changing? It's because nobody can find his channel. Because people don't know how to spell Dan's Vinyl Channel. Because of this. This is to blame right here. Can you see what that is? You guys know what that is? That's a little punctuation mark called an apostrophe. That's right. It's not Frank Zappa's fault that a lot of folks don't know how to spell. But if you're looking for Dan's channel, Dan's Vinyl Channel, you should know there's an apostrophe in there. And Dan is actually going to change his channel name because of the apostrophe. I'm sorry to hear that, Dan, but that's your choice. So here's a contest all about changes. And I'm going to start with a major change in the world of jazz. This is all about changes. John Coltrane, Giant Steps, 1959, one of the most famous jazz albums ever. And the great year of 1959, this, Brubeck Timeout, Miles Davis, Kinda Blue, all came out in that same watershed year. The song Giant Steps represented a change, and it's a change about changes, chord changes. The whole end of the bebop era, jazz is about playing quickly through chord changes, and good jazz musicians can play through chord changes. I really can't do that. I'm kind of stuck in the rock blues world in terms of guitar playing and improvising. Good jazz musicians can play through chord changes, and all those classical standard tunes had a lot of chord changes. Well, Coltrane took it up a notch, and he freaked people out when he said, okay, we're going to change chords every couple seconds. Guess what? We're also going to change keys every couple seconds. People could not keep up. Tommy Flanagan, who's the piano player on here, looked at the chart, and he's like, I'm going to sprinkle in some little notes here, but he was not prepared to play through the changes, the key changes, and but Coltrane obviously had kind of rehearsed ahead of the session and blew, knocked it out of the park. So there's a great video on this topic called, what's it called? The song that freaked out jazz musicians. I don't know what it's called, but I'm going to link to that. It's like the most feared song in jazz, something like that. And it really gets into the details of the harmony and the music theory about why and how Coltrane came up with this concept of changing key a lot. Changing chords is easy. Changing key, we call that modulation in jazz. Changing keys every couple seconds. So, Giant Steps, those are steps. That's whatever. Forget that. Okay, let's go back to the concept of changes in jazz. And I found two records that immediately came to mind on the topic of changes. And they're kind of bookending each other. One I have on record, one I have on CD. Keith Jarrett, one of the greatest piano players around today. He has a record called Changes and a record called Changeless. And these represented, I think, some changes in what Keith Jarrett was doing. He had been doing a lot of these solo records where he would come out and improvise a whole hour concert, just sit down and improvise off the top of his head, nothing pre-planned. Nobody else is really smart enough to do that. Okay, you can do it, but like, would anyone care? Would anyone listen? Would anyone buy the record? Keith Jarrett does it all the time. So he kind of changed from the solo improviser setting to a jazz trio setting. Jack DeJohnette on drums, Gary Peacock on bass, and he had just started coming out with this jazz trio set of records. So this was the third one. The first ones were called Standards Volume 1, Standards Volume 2, Jazz Standards, old classic jazz standards, which, as I alluded to before, are full of chord changes and jazz musicians playing over chord changes. But now we're getting into this thing called modal jazz, where there are no chord changes. They are changeless. I think that's what this refers to. Changeless. Lots of chord changes. Well, this record actually doesn't, but the whole jazz trio thing does. I'm kind of blabbing on here. But if you understand the whole concept of modal jazz that Miles came out with Kinda Blue, why that was such a watershed record, it's changeless. There are no chord changes. You just stay in one steady state and you keep playing over that chord, that mode. So, love these two records. This one especially, and a lot of Keith Jarrett's stuff is what I would call modal. No chord changes. Alright guys, it's enough jazz. Let's move on to something else that's less jazzy. What's the opposite of jazz? Because it is time to change. It is time to change. Are we on focus? I'm always worried about my focus. It is time to change. And if you remember this record from the 70s, when I was a kid, I used to love this show. The Brady Bunch, It's Time to Change. Who was changing? Peter? Is that his name? What's the middle kid's name? Was he Peter? So they created their own little fake rock band, and they went and spent money to do a demo. This is on the show. And the demo was ruined because this kid shows up, he's 13 years old, his voice is changing in the middle of the song. It's cracking, you know, he's singing along. He's singing in his high voice when it cracks because he's becoming a man. The change from youth to adolescence and adulthood. So the story goes they wrote a new song to take advantage of his changing voice, and it's called It's Time to Change. Cute little song about changes of life, changes of the seasons, changing in when they're dropping. But Brady Bunch, got this for $1 at the Goodwill. Gave it to my wife for Christmas this last Christmas. I give 99-cent gifts because that's who I'm about. Meet the Brady Bunch. Some nice little teenage girl named Christy used to own this. I don't know where Christy is, but Christy, if you're out there, I've got your Brady Bunch record. It's a little too bright. I hope this comes out. A lot of brightness on here because I'm facing the window. We're going all natural light, guys. As you would expect any kid's record, well, it's not as thrashed as you might expect. It's a little bit scratched up, but the problem with these old records from the 70s that were owned by kids, they played them on crappy turntables. All of my wife's Elton John records from the 70s she listened to on a little tiny little, portable record player. They didn't have balanced tone arms, so they crush the grooves, they destroy the grooves. And this one probably is the same. Anyway, that's all I have to say about changes. Oh, you know what I couldn't find? I couldn't find any Wendy Carlos records. If you guys know what that's all about, that's a major change. Dan at Dan's Vinyl Channel, thank you for coming up with an interesting concept for a contest, and I hope you get a lot of subs. And please sub me, Greg, at the Vinyl Rundown. The channel is called Vinyl Rundown because we're doing a rundown of vinyl. Pretty simple name. Dan is changing his channel name. I like your channel name, but whatever. Change is inevitable. That's the message here. People like things to stay the same, but the more they change, the more they, I don't know. You know how it goes. Thanks for watching, guys. Check you later.